Welcome to the UIF Community Podcast. Before we get started, please keep in mind that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed are those of the individual presenters and do not necessarily reflect UIF Corporation or its affiliates.
On today's episode, we will be discussing one of the best business books out there, Delivering Happiness by Tony Shay. It's a New York Times bestseller about Tony's life and business journey and how he led the growth of Zappos into an online footwear empire. The unique culture Tony and his team created made Zappos one of the most successful and envied companies in its industry. Amazon ended up buying Zappos for over $1 billion. However, Zappos continued to operate independently. But Zappos wasn't an amazing company just because it sold a lot of shoes. Tony molded Zappos to be a company where culture was paramount and employees loved to work there. Zappos is consistently voted one of the top places to work and continues to be a dominant force in the footwear industry. With that said, let's get started. Welcome to the UIF Community Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Subhani, and I'll be joined by Ijaz Hussain and Fada Zetar. Ijaz and I work at UIF in senior management, and Fada is a team lead in our vehicle division. For those of you not familiar with our company, UIF is the number one faith-based financing company in the U.S. We offer home, commercial real estate, and auto financing, as well as investment options. Please visit our website at myuif.com to learn more about UIF. Before we get into our discussion about Tony Shay today and Zappos, I always ask Ijaz to give us a short economic outlook. Ijaz, what's going on in the real estate and the financial markets currently?
Thank you, Omar. Salam, everybody. Economic outlook. I'm just going to give very limited update on that today because I think the book we have on hand, the topic we have on hand, is something that we want to cover in more detail. From an economic standpoint, not a whole lot changed in the last podcast we did. The only thing that's happened is the rates have gone up. The mortgage rates have gone up mainly due to the uncertainty in the market with the election cycle that's playing out in front of us. Market is very undecided in terms of whether who will be the next president and what their policies will be and how will they impact the rates. So I think it's more of a wait and see approach, if you will. By the next podcast we do, I have a feeling, we'll have more certainty about the rate direction. But lately, it's been that the rates have been going higher, and unfortunately, it's making housing a little bit more unaffordable at this stage. But again, they still have not gone back to their prior highs. So if you're looking to still buy your first home, I think if there is some good pricing in your communities for homes, it's a good time to buy a home. Stock markets are still towards their all-time highs, but I do have to say this just based on my casual observation, watching what the hedge fund managers, what the money managers are doing. They are leaning more towards a Trump presidency, at least the way they're positioning their portfolios, if you will. This is just me sort of keeping a track of some of the best hedge fund money managers out there. Sometimes I feel like they know a little bit more what's going on in the background. So anyways, Allahu Alam, God knows what's going to happen. We're all going to wait and see. But we feel very comfortable that, next year, we should see some rate improvement. And if you are planning on buying a home next year, this would be a great time to start talking to somebody at our company, UIF. Hopefully we can guide you and give you some preliminary knowledge on how you can best set up to buy a home. So that's really it, Omar, on the financial market news.
Sounds good, Ijaz. Yeah, thanks. It was almost like you had breaking news there about who's going to win the election. So that was maybe we can start delving into politics on future episodes, but we might get into trouble with that. So we'll maybe best to stay away.
I'm a humble man. Not very many people are probably going to say I'm humble, but I'm going to say I'm not going to make that prediction and make myself look stupid later on. So as I tell our team members, we're not in the prediction business. We're in the adapting business, basically. So at UIF, we're great at adapting to market conditions. We're not good at predicting stuff. So that's my last comment on that, Omar.
Absolutely. We'll stick with, the financial and financial industry and doing all that we're good at. So, but we have a really great book to discuss today, Ijaz, Delivering Happiness by Tony Shay. Why did we choose this book, Ijaz? Can you explain to our audience?
So I want to say this. I probably have read hundreds of books, and I'm very proud of that. That's one thing I do is just a big believer in reading books, and I think everybody knows that who know me. But very few books really touch you deeply as this book did for me. Easily, it is one of the top five books I have read in my life. The book, very simply, it's about business, it's about passion, it's about purpose. But more than that, it's about a personal story of one man's journey and his emphasis on quality, his service, the culture he wanted to create. It's a tremendous book. It's not just a success, like a business success story. It almost provides like a blueprint on how businesses should operate. One line in the book summarizes. It said, customer service is not any one department's responsibility, but it's the entire organization. And Zappos, the company Tony Shay founded, actually lived it and is living it. I think audience members who are listening to this podcast will greatly benefit from some of the points we're going to cover. But more importantly, I think we cannot do justice to the book if all you do is listen to this podcast. You have to read the book. It is very nuanced, it's very detailed, and unless and until you don't read this book, you're not going to appreciate who Tony Shay was as a man, and his vision and his execution of his vision. So that pretty much is the reason why I thought, Umar, it would be a great book for us to cover today. And I know both you and Farah have done extensive work preparing for this podcast, like we all do. And the way we're going to cover this book today is going to be in three sections. We're going to talk about the business lessons, the book, how business came, what the good ways Zappos, or things Zappos has implemented, I should say, that has made the company successful. So business lessons. Second will be more about the culture of the company itself and the employees. What makes a culture is the employees. So a little bit of the employees. And finally, it's about the life lessons that the book shares about how people can best live their lives, if you will. So that's sort of the main reason why, Umar, I think we took up on this book, and I think I'm ready to get excited. I'm excited to just dive into this book now.
Yeah, I definitely think this is one of these special books that, like some of the other books that we've covered recently, is one of those, Mount Rushmore type of business development books that are out there. So did you want to, Ijaz, go into a little bit about Tony Shay's background as well?
Yeah, I'll be happy to, because I think before we get into the lessons, I think it's important to know who the man is. I highly value people who are entrepreneur minded, and Tony Hsieh, from a very young age, was an entrepreneur. He started his first business when he was 12 years old, and even after college, he graduated from Harvard. Went to work for Oracle, but did not like just working for a company. Didn't sit well with him. He was very restless, so he left Oracle, and he ended up starting Starlink Exchange, which was this company early in the dot-com bubble, if you will, with his college roommate Sanjay. He talks about, but eventually, as the company grew from 5 or 10 people, it became increasingly clear to him that he lost the culture he wanted to create. It became very competitive, dog eat dog world. But eventually he was like, had enough of this, and he ended up selling it to Microsoft for $265 million in 2009. After that, what he did is he basically wandered around trying to find himself. Went on hiking and this and that, and started playing poker in Vegas. He just was trying to find things that would work for him. Eventually, he started up this venture fund where he invested, in 20 different companies. But one company really stood out to him, and that was Zappos, where he felt it was basically an online shoe retailer, but he loved it. He felt he could make a difference over there. So he ended up getting rid of all the other 19 and fully dove into Zappos and became their CEO, and eventually built it to the point where Amazon couldn't compete with them. And in Amazon, Jeff Bezos' book, which he wrote, he talked about Zappos and said, we kept on hearing about this one company. We really believe in our customer service and how important for Amazon to provide the best customer service. But we kept on hearing about this one company called Zappos, this footwear company, and we made several offers. They basically declined. Eventually, we ended up buying them out. So eventually, Zappos was sold to Amazon, mostly because Tony mentions in the book that the investors he had at Zappos at that time, they were just pushing for profitability, and his vision didn't really align with the vision of the early investors, because a lot of these venture funds, private equity people, they're very much short-term focused. They want to make the most amount of money. So he felt the timing was right for Amazon to come in to buy Zappos out. But the condition was, and this is probably the only subsidiary that Amazon owns that did not completely incorporate them into Amazon itself. In essence, Amazon allowed Zappos to continue as part of their precondition to get bought out, is Zappos will be run independently, still maintaining its own culture, so it doesn't get completely absorbed by Amazon. So Amazon purchased Zappos, and then eventually Tony Shay retired and so on. But that's his background, if you will. Along the way, I'll throw some more tidbits in there. But Farah, why don't we get into some of the business lessons? I know there are a few business lessons that are very prominent in the book. Why don't you start us off? What is the first business lesson that you found very engaging in the book?
The honestly, all the business lessons were amazing, but the one that stood out the most for me is actually when he learned from playing poker. The most important thing that I feel like he learned is you have to select the right table or the right market in order to go and pursue your happiness, your goal, everything in it. So by choosing the right table is the most important decision in poker. It's the same concept as choosing the right market or industry to compete in. For him, that was Zappos. That was what made him happy, made him feel fulfilled. Being at the right table is going to determine whether you win or lose. He eventually kept going to poker. Eventually, he learned all the players' patterns, realized, hey, I can win at this table. Hey, I can lose at this table, which is what brought on the lesson. Hey, be at the right table, the right market. You will go ahead and win.
Yeah, that's great. Omar, your take on this?
Yeah, he mentions a couple of things, right? Just in metaphorically when it comes to poker as well, right? It's okay to switch tables, right? If you find out it's too hard to win at the table you're currently at, right? So knowing the market that you're in, is this a wise decision to be in this particular market? Maybe it's not the best decision for your company. So that's something to think about, right? Like, for us at UIF, we also do that same thing, right? We analyze and try to figure out, okay, is this a good business decision for us? Like, we launched auto financing. Is that something good for us, right? So those are the types of things that, you have to think about as a company. And, you mentioned also there's too many competitors in a certain market. It might be best not to enter that market or to stay in there, right? So those are the kind of things that, metaphorically as it relates to poker, that he was learning from that and applying to his business as well.
Yeah, he
Right.
was looking like at the short term and the long term goals, and making sure that, hey, is this going to work in the market? Is it going to develop into something bigger and better, or is this just going to go away after just a short while? Sorry, Jazz, I cut you off.
No. That's a good point. No, I was going to say, one thing you learn in life, and when I first got into the business world myself, I started a few companies, and a couple of them did really well. Then I became overconfident, and I started putting money into some ventures that people asked me to put some money in, and I ended up losing in that. One of them was a travel agency I started up because of a cousin who lost his job in the travel sector came to me. Let's start it. Not doing anything about it, I dove in, put money into it. After 5 years, I had to shut it down because I was losing a lot of money. But then that's part of lessons in life you learn. What is your core competency? And that's what even Warren Buffett says. Focus on your core competency. He talks about this too. It's not the timing, size of the market. Who are you competing against? What is your unique advantage? These are things that you must be considered. Like, what is your blue ocean strategy? Right, it's a whole different book that you can do. Is what can make you successful? What makes you unique? You don't want the biggest competitors fighting in the same battle. One of the funniest books, not funny, but a story in a book that I read about Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin. He started Virgin Airlines, Virgin Cola, many Virgin Cruises, etc. But in his book, one thing he pointed out that he tried, he launched Virgin Cola, and they just were not winning any market share against Coke and Pepsi, because Coke and Pepsi just dominated the Coca-Cola markets in the world. And everywhere he went, always last. So one day, finally, his manager comes and says, "Well, actually, we're doing good in one region." Which region is that? He goes, Bangladesh. So Virgin Cola was the number one cola in Bangladesh. And he said that's when he realized, I need to shut this business down, because if I'm only going to be in number one in Bangladesh, I can't compete with these guys. So he shut that business down. So again, it's just life lessons you learn, that sometimes people, don't do stupid things in life. Don't invest in things you don't understand. So, so those are things. That's why his analogy about when you walk into a poker room, if some people are really smart on the table, you don't want to go compete there. Find a table that maybe you have less smarter people than you, and that's how you succeed. So that was I thought was a great lesson. And Umar, there was another lesson that I think on our call you to discuss that you wanted to cover.
Yeah.
That.
Right. So he mentioned, not outsourcing your core competencies, right? And that goes to the story at Zappos, where they had, basically decided to expand from drop shipping, to warehousing shoes, right? And so they signed up a company, I believe E-Logistics, right? Ajaz is the name of the company, and E-Logistics dropped the ball basically for them. Orders were not getting out on time. Customer service was suffering. So, it was going into the heart of their company and endangering them. And at that time, early 2000s, they were cash strapped. They were trying to make sure that Zappos survived. So they really couldn't afford to have like these type of headaches. And, Tony realized that, this is like an essential component of the business, right? We can't give this responsibility to somebody else. So, they basically gave E-Logistics a chance. They created their own, Tony ended up creating his own warehouse and gave E-Logistics a chance that, like, look, if we can basically outperform you, over the next like 6 months or so, we're basically going to just cancel everything with you and just do it ourselves. And so that's what ended up happening. They ended up, getting this big warehouse in Kentucky and, expanding their operations from there and having all their warehouse orders go out directly on their own. And, he admits himself, like, we didn't know anything about how to do this. We just were kind of figuring it out on the fly. And a lot of funny stories in the book. They're just driving across the country from California to Kentucky and chugging down Red Bulls and, trying to get this whole thing started. Right. But it just shows that, that's how essential it was. And that's how serious they were about getting these things right. I mean, Tony basically invested his entire savings into saving Zappos and trying to make sure that this thing was successful. But, it goes to, very fundamental business lesson, right? If you are, you have essential components of your company that you just cannot give out to somebody else. You can't rely on other people to do that for you, right? So I think that's really one of the major lessons of this book is if you're going to be successful in business, you're going to run a successful company, there's certain, pillars to your company that just cannot be given out and given to others to handle for you.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, if you're selling shoes online and that's or whatever, other than warehouses and the shoes that you're getting from manufacturers, shipping is the most important function. And if you don't control that, that's why even if you see Amazon and all the Amazon trucks, because Amazon got tired of that too. I mean, they had to depend a lot on UPS, on postal service, on FedEx, etc. And they said, that's really impacting our business. That last mile, yeah, you can get products shipped from one warehouse out to the airport onto the next warehouse, but that last mile delivery, if that is not done satisfactorily, it's a huge problem. That's why Amazon went into that business by getting their own trucks and so on and so forth, because everybody wants to control that last mile, because if that experience is bad, the customers have a bad experience. So no, great topic, Omar.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add even to that, like I'm thinking of other like companies that had a similar type of thing. Like, you think of like computer processors, things like that. Like Apple's famously known to have like their own, chips and designs that they put into their computers and iPads and iPhones and everything. They don't outsource that to anybody else because they want to make sure everything in-house, it's all smooth, it operates like perfectly, right? Like, so everyone gets an iPhone in the first place, right? Like I was a huge Android user for many, many years. But, it's sometimes buggy because, the parts don't really fit sometimes all together, even though, Samsung overall, for the most part, does a pretty good job of being as close to Apple as anybody else, but it's just not Apple, right? It's just not the same thing, as cool as Android can be, and you have all these cool features. it's just the iPhone just works,
Not
man.
Apple. What are you trying to say?
Yeah, yeah, it's just not Apple, you know. Yeah, it's just it is like, you know, at the end of the day, those things just that's what makes Apple Apple, is because they don't, you know, basically outsource that to anybody else. They just do it themselves, and they do it really well.
That was Steve Jobs' philosophy too. He said he wanted to control the hardware and the software. If you read his book, another one of the top 5 books I've ever read in autobiography, he talks about that as well. Like that, you know, he always told his investors and his board that, you know, we can't be a great company unless we don't control the hardware and the software. Because if we depend on Samsung or other companies to provide this, or Google to provide the iOS systems and so forth, not going to work. So that's why Apple today is the most valuable company on the planet. Farab, let's get into the. I'm going to have you. Before I go there, there's a very funny story in the book that he talks about retail versus manufacturing. That really, I had a smile on my face. Really want to share that. You know, when he was in college, Tony started this pizza company in the basement of his dorm. And he bought the ovens and he bought the supplies. He hired employees to make these pizzas. But this one kid, Alfred, would come down every night and he'd buy this extra large pizza,
Yeah.
and he would take it up every night. And
Yeah.
Tony is like, you know, and sometimes on the weekends he'd come and buy 2 pizzas. I'm like, I can't believe this guy keeps eating like 1 or 2 pizzas every single night, and these are extra large pizzas. So later on, he asked me, what is going on? And he found out that Alfred would take these pizza upstairs and sell each slice individually and make more money than obviously what he paid for that pizza. And so that's when he realized, you know what, I'm spending all this time and resources and to make this pizza, and this guy just calmly comes up, buys one, takes it up, sells it by the slice. And that's when he realized, I don't want to be in the manufacturing business. I'd rather be in retail. That's why Zappos fit in perfectly,
Right.
because he had the shoes he's getting from Nike and Skechers and Under Armour and all the different brands. And all he's doing is he's figured out how to sell these shoes and get them to people on time. So I thought it was a very funny story. Farah, do you have any other business lessons you want to cover, or you want to go into the culture and
I
people?
honestly, I want to go into the culture because I feel like the Zappos culture is one of the best cultures to actually be in. And I feel like we even adapt it at UIF. They emphasize the importance that culture is everything. It is the key to success. It's where your colleague becomes family. They become your friends. They're the ones that you hang out with outside of work, outside of business. And Tony believed that that is the key to success, where he even would be hanging out with his colleagues and everybody outside of business. And that's where he felt the most happy. That's where they got the best ideas. Them going down to the bar with a drink, they would just keep bouncing off of each other ideas. And a lot of them have been implemented into Zappos culture. They always wanted to invest in employees to the point where they were even inspired by the book Good to Great. Start triggered it where now they have a library where they require their employees to go ahead and learn, get educated, to even prosper more into the future. He was building this type of culture where it didn't only help him, but it also helped his employees as well. This created actually a domino effect for him, where it's like, I invested in my employees, therefore they're going to provide great customer service, which went ahead and produce great productivity. So it was just like, it all started with the culture at Zappos.
He actually, Tony Shay says that one of his talks I was listening to, he basically says, listen, people think customer service is our number one goal. He goes, no, culture is our number one goal. He goes,
Right.
creating the right culture, because if you create the right culture, customer service follows. And at UIF, we've also had our own culture that we've created on the philosophy of do good, be good, and we want to be, do good to each other, to our employees, and be good to our customers at the end of the day, because through them is when we get referrals. And so as long as we follow this philosophy of do good, be good, it has helped us be successful to the level we have been. Umar, any comments on the culture?
Yeah, you guys touched on that. I think one of the things that Tony mentioned in the book, one of the quotes, is he said, for individuals, character is destiny. For organizations, culture is destiny, right? So he mentioned that, and sticking to the core competencies, and as well as everyone should know the kind of the the kind of core principles of the company. So as long as you have core principles and the company sticks to it, right? That's the most important thing. Is not just that you have them, but you actually stick to them. That's going to benefit the company overall in the long run. But one of the things that stuck out was when that beginning phase of Zappos, where they're kind of just trying to survive. They had a round of layoffs of people, and it was basically they were trying to weed out the like he calls them like non-believers and low performers. And then he mentioned that they saw that productivity didn't go down as a result of that, right? In fact, it actually went up. So if you have the right people, the people who believe in what the company is doing, and there's a greater mission above just making profits, people will basically rally together to make the company go to another level. And I think that's extremely important for any organization, any company, that you want to have the right people on the bus. It is like something that you mentioned a lot and often on our calls as a team, is having the right people on the bus and people with the same mentality, same motivation. There's a bigger purpose to what you're doing. And when you have that rallying cry, I think that really gets people motivated day in, day out to go out and really hustle and bust their butt. We all do that, here at UIF, we're doing that. We're running around and, taking care of customers and going to events and sponsorships and all these type of things. But it's just part of the culture. Like, we just know that's what we got to do. Like, this is part of our DNA as a company. And that's what they were doing at Zappos, right? They had that bigger cause, that greater cause that was in their mind. And so you rally around that, and that eventually leads to success, right? That leads to profitability, and all the good things will come along with that.
Two other points the book makes that I really thought, very powerful. One, he said, we don't spend money on marketing. He said, we spend money on culture, on customer service, employee training, but we don't spend money on marketing, because at the end of the day, if you get these three things right, culture, customer service, employee training, then your customers themselves will drive referrals. And that is very powerful. Imagine that. You take all your marketing budget, companies spend millions and millions in marketing to bring customers in, but he's saying, well, we just spend that money on our own people. And eventually, good things happen. And the other thing he makes is, treat your vendor partners with respect and fairness. He said, sometimes people always want to squeeze out the last dollar out of their vendor partners and treat them poorly because they are their vendors. He said, don't do that. They'll be with you longer and further and deeper if you treat them with respect and fairness. So those are the two really good points also. Let's get into the people part now. Any comments you have on the people?
Another thing I wanted to actually say is as you and Omar were saying, is when Zappos was hiring employees, they told people after 2 weeks, if it does not work out, we're going to give you $2,000 just to leave, because they wanted to weed out people. They wanted people to be there because they wanted to be there, because they wanted them to fit the culture. Even in their process of hiring people, there's a two-step process. What that means is, first you speak to the hiring managers, you get past it, you have the qualifications, then they actually test you to see if you are actually going to fit within that culture for them. You must pass both of them in order to go ahead and move to the next step and get hired, which I found very intriguing, because it was like they didn't only want you to have the qualifications, because a lot of people even were overqualified but still did not get hired. They wanted you to go ahead and fit into their culture and make sure, hey, yeah, you are going to be part of the family. This is not just like, oh yeah, we're working and gone. No, you are part of the family. And I see that a lot even in our offices and all that. We act as a family unit at the end of it. We do get our work done, which is what promotes the great customer service that we even provide, which is why they have that wow factor for their customer service.
Yeah. Tony talks about this, that, it's very important for the people to understand who we are as a company. And during the training, and at the end of the training, they tell their people, if you don't think we are the right company for you, they started off giving $100, but eventually nobody was leaving, so they're up to $2,000 now. So besides the training time that you've put in, paying you for that training time, we will give you up to $2,000 to walk away right now, if you don't think you're a fit for us. Because he said, that way we start with the good people, and rather than starting with people who may not be the best fit for us. I thought that was a great point. Any takeaway you have on the people side on the book? Or
no, I'm good.
I do want to say a couple of things that really stood out to me. One of them was he says, I don't know if it was in the book or one of the talks I listened to. He said, Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, was once asked, I go to many different coffee shops. But how do you get to hire the best baristas? A lot of employees always smile. They seem to be enjoying the work. And his answer was, I just hire people who like smiling because it's easy to hire the right people and then train them afterwards. So I thought that was a kind of a good analogy. Farah, you laughed about something. Do you have a point? Or
No, I like that idea where it's like, because a lot of people when they smile, it just makes the customer feel better about themselves. That's why I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Hire people that are smiling, and then because you can train almost everybody. 90% of the people that you hire, you can't train, but you can never give them that personal touch of, hey, this person is smiling, makes somebody's day even better, because that's my philosophy as well. I always smile. I'm always giggly and happy and all that. It's just because I know I can make somebody's day. Um,
yeah,
but that's
the
just my personality,
no.
clearly.
You are the sunshine in the office, Farah. I can attest to that. You work with me in the Chicago office, and you walk in, and everybody else is smiling. You leave, we all go sad after that. So, uh, the one other point, on this recruiting hiring part he makes is, the chauffeur test. One of the things that people, you should know this if you haven't done this. If you go to Vegas, that's where the headquarters are for Zappos. They actually pick you up from the airport. They take you, give you a tour of the office, and then they'll drop you at the hotel you're staying at. If you are ever going to go to Vegas, I highly recommend you take that tour. I have not done it yet, but definitely next time I go to Vegas, I will put it on my agenda to contact Zappos because I'd love to go take a tour, and they'll show you the library. And two books they recommend is Good to Great that we covered in one of our podcasts. I think it was the last podcast or the one before that. But regardless, the Good to Great, and then Tribal Leadership. And the Tribal Leadership book, he said, you can even download it for free off of Zappos's online. If you go to zappos.com, I believe, at least according to the talks, I don't know if it's still there or not, but Tribal Leadership is a book that they highly recommend besides Good to Great. And he said you can download it for free from there. The chauffeur test they talked about is that, once the recruits that come in for a job interview and they're being dropped off at the airport, let's say, the chauffeurs are trained to talk to them, and the chauffeur's feedback, the driver's feedback is again then sent back to the HR people about how was that person, were they kind, were they considerate, so their talking points also are part of the interview process, because this is sometimes in that environment people tend to show their true colors besides just in the interview how most people like to talk and say good things about themselves and so forth. So little things like that. I mean, this company is truly very unique in the way they recruit, they hire, they train, they manage. I mean, like I said, it's a book that is absolutely worth reading. I'm ready to go into life lessons. If you guys have any other points you want to cover or on this section here.
I'm good on my side, Farah.
I am good on my side.
So on life lessons, I just will just make a couple of points. You guys can add to that. He talks. It says, in the end, we all have to answer one question: what is your end goal and why? And each of us has to answer that question ourselves. Are we at the right company? Are we in the right relationships? Are we? What is our goal? And then do something every day or every week to achieve that goal. And he says once we figure out how we can make ourselves happy, we can then deliver happiness to others. So if you're not going to be happy, you can't deliver happiness to others because you don't have something that you can share with other people. And one of the things, to a great degree, they talk about luck in the book. He says, part of the interviewing process, they talk about people saying, they ask a question, do you consider yourself lucky? And they ask them to grade them from 1 to 10, 10 being I'm very, very lucky, 1 being I'm not lucky. And according to them, if you don't score high on that metric, they don't hire them because they feel that people who don't consider themselves lucky typically tend to blame others, and sometimes they bring bad juju to the company itself, basically. And I honestly believe that people who, in general, feel that life has been good to them, and again, everybody's life is different, so I'm not passing judgment on anybody. If we're fortunate, we're lucky. If we're healthy, happy overall, hey, we're blessed for that. But in general, Zappos tends to say, if when you do the interview process and somebody comes in, they're complaining about the last employer, the last boss. Oh yeah, life has been hard on me. They typically say we want to pass on that because they bring that mentality to the company, and that doesn't help. So that's one point. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. I mean, you want to bring in people who don't point fingers at others, right? I mean, that's just such a toxic trait to have with people like that, and it can permeate and really cause chaos within an organization or a company. So I agree with that 100%. I think that's what makes companies successful is having people who are like-minded that hold themselves accountable before they hold others accountable. As part of being a manager, you have to look at yourself. Did I train this person properly? Did I set them up for success? Did I give them, achievable goals? Did I make things clear of what they're supposed to do? So, that goes like for, Ijaz, the way you have trained many of us and myself, I look at that, personally. But, if you have people who are of that mindset where, point fingers at everybody else, it's their fault, it's that person's fault, this thing happened. It's a very difficult way to live life. It's not great for organizations. It's just not a great way to live life in general.
And one of the things I really admire about this company, right? If they can do something good, they let somebody else do it. Like one of the things their employees are trained is, when they say, we don't hide behind links that are buried like 5 lines deep on customer service pages. Our 800 number is on the top, and we love talking to people. We don't rely on technology for service. We rely on our people. And one of the things they talk about is if a customer calls and inquires about a shoe brand or a clothing brand that we don't have, our people are trained to do a quick research for them on 3 other top websites selling that, and they tell them, hey, go to this particular website, they have that brand, we don't have it here. And they said, yes, we lose business, but basically we do that because we want to do what is right. So some of these things that the book talks about, or Tony in his speeches he's talked about, is always just keep passing, do the right thing, move it, add value, do the right thing. So these are some very, very important life lessons. For anything that you picked up from the book on life lessons in general?
I actually I purchased from Zappos before multiple times before I was going to Lebanon. I couldn't find this pair of shoes, and the only people that had them was Zappos. They did delay my order. I don't know what happened with the shipping. So I contacted them, and honestly, they were some of the sweetest people I've ever talked to in customer service. They, of course, apologized, tried to make it better, try to make it as fast as possible. And I got my shoe as fast as possible because they took care of it all from the back end, contacted the carrier, did everything for me. And I had the shoe the next day. So customer service was excellent. And I don't know.
Did you try ordering? Did you try finding out about a pizza place that they could tell you
I
about?
also
There's a funny story about that also, and Tony mentions it in one of his. I was watching one of his interviews, right, where someone had called the company about about pizza, and
it
the
was
customer rep,
Skechers. It was
right?
a Skechers
Is it
rep that.
Skechers? Okay, Skechers doesn't make pizza though, right? So
No.
yeah,
It's
No, no,
the
no, no.
story is
yeah,
yeah. They had all gone very quickly. The story is very funny. You guys brought it up, so I'll share it. I just heard that story too. Tony and some Skechers the people, team members had all gone out, and as a joke, the Skechers employee wanted to have pizza, and the pizza place was at the hotel was the kitchen was closed. So
yeah,
somebody from the delivering from the Zappos team recommended the Sketcher person, hey, maybe you should call the Zappos customer service hotline and see if they can help you. And first she smiled, she's like, really? They're like, try it. So they're listening in the background speakerphone, and she calls up and tells the Zappos employee on customer service, hey, I was trying to get pizza, but the hotel kitchen is closed. What do you recommend? And first there was an awkward pause, and then the employee says, well, ma'am, you're calling Zappos a shoe retailer, right? She goes, yeah, but somebody told me you guys are good at customer service. So he said, okay, hold on 1 second. He goes and he does his online search and says, I can't help you here, but I'm going to give you names of these pizza companies that are open right now that they can happily deliver over to you. So another lesson of how employees are trained to do whatever it takes to make the person happy, regardless of what the question is. So I thought that was a great story.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fantastic story. Yeah, I mean that just
I
shows
was
that they're there to help, and they just want to be like of service to people. Just that's a really really funny story, but great story at the same time.
to
But
be
that goes to
honest.
show. But that goes to show like how much they let people like just be on the call as long as they need to be, solve the problem. Don't worry about the other companies are, how long are you on the every company measures these metrics, right? How long are you spending time with the customer? Blah,
Exactly.
blah, 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 blah. So these are wrong metrics to measure. At the end of the day, if you want that customer experience, let the people. One call Tony mentions 7.5 hours. They were talking. He goes, I don't know what they're talking about, but this long call. The consumer dealing with some issues, and the rep was on the phone with them for 7.5 hours. So because they don't give them time, it doesn't matter. Take however long to solve the problem. And really, again, I mean, it's just the book has very great examples and stories that illustrate the points. Okay, so any other last points? If not, I'm ready to wrap up, Omar, with some.
Yeah, I just wanted just since the book is about delivering happiness. I mean, Tony, one of the quotes that stuck out to me, right? He said, "Money alone isn't enough to bring happiness. Happiness is when you're actually truly okay with losing everything you have." Right? So,
Yeah.
from our Islamic tradition, myself being Muslim, that's something that really like resonated with me. That true contentment is not all the material things that you have, right? It's you know, it's everything else, right? Like your family, your friends, the things that are not quantitative, right? It's qualitative in the end, right? Those are the things that really matter at the end of the day. Not what your titles are, how much money you have, what car you drive, etc. Those things will come and go. They can go up and down, right? But true happiness is really what's in your soul, right? Are you content? Are you happy with whatever God's given you in this life, right? So to me, that really resonated quite a bit.
Yeah. Farah, is there a particular quote resonated with you, or any last thing on before I get into the wrap up of this? Or
My favorite one was money alone isn't enough to bring happiness. Happiness is when you're actually truly okay with losing everything you have. And I actually go by this because I don't, yeah, money is great for me. Good. It helps with life, but I don't believe it's everything. I believe that the first thing is happiness. And I go by that life. I rather be happy and poor than be filthy rich and just crying. Um, that's the one thing that actually truly did resonate with me because prior to reading this book, I was this way. It just, when somebody just puts it into words, just makes it a lot better. I found myself sometimes even smiling or laughing while reading this book, which was just getting a reaction out of me. And that's why this is actually going to be, this became one of my favorite books that I would actually read over and over again.
no, I'm so glad.
I'm glad we agreed on that, Fada. We had the same quote. So
Yeah, no, I
weird minds think alike.
this book has so many gems. I want to call it, and some illustrated with quotes. And these are my top five. I probably have 20 of them, but here are the top five I'm going to share very quickly. One of the ones he talks about is when you walk with purpose, you collide with destiny. And on sharing happiness, he says, share happiness. He goes, that's one way to live life. And he said, this quote: thousands of candles can be lit by one candle, and the life of the candle will not be cut short. So again, when you share happiness with others, you're not taking anything away from yourself. You're basically just adding
Yeah.
more to life. The one he talked about challenges, he said you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. I thought that was a great quote about just being able to adapt yourself and deal with challenges. One quote about, the art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook. And I tell our team all the time, stop going down every rabbit hole. Okay, customer did this, he did that. I'm like, we just can't worry about all of that. Don't get distracted. And that exactly is this. The art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook and focusing on what you need to focus on. And the last one I thought. Which is very true to Zappos more than anything else is, there is a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. I think, every company talks a big game. Oh, customer service. Oh, we do the yeah, but it's not in their DNA, right? Again, I'm very proud to be part of UIF because I really feel we go out of the way to walk the path that we talk about, which is basically providing our customers excellent customer service, being there, hand holding. That's our number one priority. We exist because of our customers. our realtor partners, and our employees, and we realize that, and that's what has made UIF special, because we not only just talk the talk, but we also walk the walk as opposed to other companies. I am going to end on a sad note with this book. Tony Shay, in his short life, I should say, because he retired. Amazon actually purchased Zappos in 2009. He retired from Zappos in 2020, August 2020, and then he passed away in November 2020. So a few months after retiring from Zappos and Amazon, Tony Shay passed away, and he was 46 years old. So an incredible life lived in a short period of time. And I think this book will resonate for years and years to come. As Farah said, it's become one of her top books, and Farah reads a lot as well. And I know, Omar, you do too as well. And I think clearly anybody who reads this book, it'll become one of their top books too. And again, some books I say, it's okay. You got a couple of good ideas out of it. It's an okay book. But the books we profile on this podcast at UIF Community Podcast, we hand select the best books. And to me, this is right at the top of the best books I've read. And I encourage all our listeners to not just listen to this podcast, but again, go out and buy the book or borrow the book online through Audible or whatever your platform is, and just listen to the book in its entirety. I think it's fabulous. There's also Tony's speeches on YouTube that you can go listen to. I think it's amazing work. Omar, I think I'm done with my comments. Anything you want to say, or Farah, you want to say, then you can end with that, Omar.
Yeah, just one thing is, I don't know if we want to start a trivia session, right? But Ajaz, you mentioned the quote, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. So if those who are listening, if you want to reply back to us at feedback@myuif.com, right, with the movie that quote came from, because it's a very famous sci-fi movie from the 90s, we'll send out a goodie or something too, gift card or something like that, right?
We'll do a little raffle with that. So also, I said last podcast as well, please use feedback@myuif.com. If you have any ideas for books that you want us to cover, or any speakers you think would be great to bring onto our podcast, please let us know. We want to have our audience engaged in this to make this platform better and better. Sorry, Mar, go ahead, please.
No problem at all, Jaz. Yeah, but one of the quotes also that I'd like to mention, right, is he said, no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future, right? So really for, we have sales team people and other employees here at UIF and anywhere you are, right? If you haven't achieved your goals that you've set out, right, the future is not been written, right? So you can always achieve whatever it is that you haven't achieved yet, right? Or any goals you haven't accomplished, right? Whether they're personal or, your career or whatever it is, our future has not been written. We don't know what it's going to be, right? So that should be our motivation, that, whatever I haven't achieved yet or I haven't accomplished, that future is still available to me, right? So we should not look like our life is already set in stone and we can't get any better, any improvements or anything like that. I think that really resonated with me. Fadia, anything you want to add there before we wrap up today?
We're good to go. All I say is go read the book, go listen to it. It's an all-time favorite.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Jaz, thank you. I know you're going to be traveling for the next couple of weeks, so do appreciate everyone, for your support listening to the podcast. We've had, thousands and thousands of listeners now. It's really awesome to see, how much the podcast has been growing. The podcast is supported by UIF Corporation. We're the #1 Islamic financing company in the U.S. Please check us out at myuif.com. We really appreciate the support again. And if you can, please make sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube or whatever podcast platform that you follow us on, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. It goes a long way. If you can like and also, put a 5-star review as well after listening, if you find it beneficial, we'd really appreciate it. That it goes a long way in supporting our podcast and the efforts that we're putting in here. We hope that it's beneficial, helps you in your life. That's what we're trying to do here, is provide extra value to our community. We really appreciate that and all the support and love and feedback that we've gotten over the last several weeks. So without further ado, we're going to wrap up for today. You can check us out again at myuif.com if you're looking for Islamic financing for home, commercial, auto, savings accounts. We offer all of those things. And 5-star customer service. That's really what we're about at UIF. So we really appreciate all the support that's out there. And, without further ado, again, we will wrap up for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ajaz. Thank you, Fada. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.